I'm Chris, and I have met most of you or all of you at some point. Happy to be here. I'm MyStar's professional learning coordinator. And with us today, Lindsay's here. She's not on this list, but she's doing everything behind the scenes to make everything flow smoothly. And so hopefully you've met Lindsay before if you've come to our learning series in the past. And then Barb is here with us today. She is also a retired teacher like I am. She works on our assessment team, and she's has tremendous expertise on assessment. You've probably met her if you've done phase one or any of our assessment virtual sessions. And then Steph is here with us today. She's our curriculum team coordinator, and she's going to be here throughout, and she'll be here at the end when we'll do some breakout rooms. And so if you have questions specific to curriculum updates and new curriculum products or anything you want to know about curriculum, Steph's here to chat with. So our agenda is we're going to talk about curriculum updates and some assessment updates, and then a little quick kind of plug for some upcoming professional learning. And then we'll do some breakout rooms at the end, and you can choose which room you'd like to go in and who you'd like to ask questions to. So starting with curriculum, we do have 4 new enhanced units that we published on August 9th. And so you should see those. Those should be available to you on your dashboard. We have Unit 6.3. We integrated some of the basic chemistry, took out some of the real complicated chemistry, put the atoms and molecules stuff that was in the off-the-shelf lessons, put it right in the unit, and shortened it up, tightened it up a little bit. 7.6 genetics has been revamped and tightened up a bit. Unit 8.2 has been revised a little bit, and 8.6 natural hazards got a good revision. I know one of the complaints was that it was not very hands-on, and Steph worked with one of our MyStar teachers to really improve that. So those are our new units over the last few weeks. And down at the bottom of slide 6 here, you see this link for a curriculum enhancements roadmap. So Lindsay updates this document regularly, and it is available under the MyStar organizational resources link under the resources dropdown anytime you want it. But if you're wondering, when was something published, you want to see the updates overview document that, gives you the quick review of what the changes were. All of that's available in this in curriculum enhancements, and it lists new off-the-shelf lessons and our remote stuff that is mostly related to during COVID when people were teaching online, but the assessments, the career connections, and then some of our units have notes from our modeling teachers from our collaboration with the modeling community. So all of that's on the curriculum enhancements roadmap if you're wondering about some of the other units that you might be teaching. When was that enhanced? Is it going to be enhanced, etc. One of the things that we got from our some of the surveys that we did in the spring was some interest in sessions that would be specifically about certain units, like to help you prepare for certain units. And so we thought we'd try this. I'm not sure we'll have enough people really to make this go. I think it's something that sounds appealing to people, but you get kind of overwhelmed with daily teacher stuff. But if you're interested in this, if you're going to teach Unit 6.3 this year, we're going to start with Unit 6.3. And Lindsay and I and Barb are going to do a drop-in session on Wednesday, October 2nd, and we'll review the new storyline, some of the labs and materials that you'll need, and then let you ask questions. And so you can come and go as you would like anytime between 3:30 and 4:30 and get some tips and tricks for Unit 6.3. And then if we get a good response to that, we'll continue to schedule these drop-ins for some of the other units. And hopefully that, if that's something you're interested in, that'll support you with that. So that you can sign up for that on the dashboard. And that's taking place, our first one, the beginning of October. And then we'll roll out more from there if we get a lot of interest. And then we have 22 units total, and we now have 19 of them that are enhanced, and we have 3 left. And so the last 3 are in process right now to be reviewed and shortened and updated, and get those reading guides in there, and the navigation guides, and the updated assessments, and all of the goodies and bells and whistles that are in the enhanced units. So those will be available to you in December. So if you're planning on teaching one of these units this year, hopefully, you know, you can wait until second semester and then use the enhanced version. The old versions are always available as archived versions too. So, you know, if your teaching partner doesn't want to, you know, go through the update, or you know, you really like the old version, you know, you can always use the archived version. And then if you're going to be teaching one of these sometime in the near future, and you want to just kind of get a heads up, what materials will I need? What's this going to look like? If you send us an email, we can, you know, get you access as soon as we have that information. So maybe a little bit before they're published in December. Slide guides and unit summary tables are 2 things that we've heard repeatedly from teachers. They would love it. Teachers would love it if the slides were kind of set up for you and in a way that's consistent. So we do have a lot of slides that we've done in some of our newer units, especially, and we had some slides that were done during COVID that teachers contributed. But it's a bit of a mishmash, and the format wasn't always consistent, and some units didn't really have them at all. And so one of the things we're going to do this year is make sure that we have slide guides in every single unit, and we're going to use this kind of uniform format. And so we're working on that. So we're hoping by the end of the year, all of the units will have slide guides. And then the other thing that we've heard from teachers, and makes a lot of sense to a lot of us too, is that the unit summary table could use some improvement. So when MyStar started including unit summary tables in their units back in 2015, that was an NGSS tool. And the way we set it up was kind of how NGSS had suggested. And over time, gotten a lot of feedback that it's sometimes really time consuming or really difficult to get kids to do all that writing. And so we have Unit 7.1 and Unit 8.1 that we worked with the West Ed reading specialists. And so their unit summary tables in those 2 units were a little bit different. They looked a little more like what you're seeing here on the screen. They're a little more scaffolded, and teachers like that. And so over the summer, we looked at those formats, and we came up with a kind of a uniform format for our unit summary tables also. And so you'll see in the new units that we just published, you'll see this new format. And then we are in the process of going back through all of our units and replacing the unit summary tables. So you'll see a lot of those this fall, and then throughout the year being replaced. And so what we'd like to do right now is kind of 2 things. We'd like you to take a look at the sample slide guide and the sample unit summary table that we provided on slide 11. And then we'd like to give you a chance to actually kind of take a look at them instead of just kind of, you know, talking at you and then moving on. So we're going to take a couple minutes and let you actually, you know, kind of dig in and take a look at the slide guide sample and take a look at the unit summary table. And then we'll put you in some breakout rooms and ask you to maybe, you know, introduce yourself and say hello and chat a little bit. And then kind of as a team, you know, what are you noticing about those slide guides? What do you wonder about them? And what do you notice about the unit summary table? And what do you wonder? And some of your feedback will be useful to us also, because we are kind of considering these pilots, and we're not averse to, you know, making some last minute changes based on teacher feedback. So we'd like to give you a few minutes to take a look for your own information, and then tell us what you're noticing and what you're wondering. So we'll do 3 rooms. And so we have slide 12, 13, and 14. We have a slide for each room. So I'm going to go ahead and create some breakout rooms. Thanks. So we were just kind of watching what people were writing and kind of thinking about what, how we could respond, and more than happy to have, if you guys have something that you want to add or ask, you didn't quite have time to write it down or whatever, we'd be happy to chat about that, and we'll do those breakout rooms at the end. Thinking about the slide guide, someone asked about the question and answer slides aren't at the beginning. If you're thinking about where we post the guiding questions, those are designed to help you manage those productive talk situations. So you might see them in the anchor, but it's going to be after the phenomena has been presented. And then you will for sure see them in the share, but that's going to be after the Uncover lab activity. And then after students have shared, maybe their initial models or their initial thoughts. And then those guiding questions are, you don't have to follow that script, but they're there if you're not sure how to get that conversation started. And if you want to just kind of a list of things that bullet points that you kind of know that you want covered in that conversation, because that's going to lead you to those science principles. So we were hesitant in making these slide guides because we were afraid teachers would take this as a script and think that they have to do everything and they don't have to do anything else. If it's in the slides, they do it, and they can't cut anything out, and they, don't have to add anything or do anything else. And so we just really want to emphasize that the slides are meant as just kind of a starting place for you. And, please adapt them to what you're going to do with your kids, what your kids need, all that kind of stuff. If there's too much in the slides, delete some of them, please. If you're going to add something, go ahead and add that. You want to change the wording, you want to, space things out or condense them. They're really just meant as a starting place. So you have links to videos, you have the guiding questions, you have the images of, the labs and stuff. And then, you go ahead and change things however you would like. And then thinking about making the slideshow interactive. So Steph mentioned Pear Deck as a way to do that. And we think that Pear Deck probably requires a subscription that your district may or may not have. But that might be a possibility. And then, ways to modify and reduce the slide parts, please, go for it. They're meant to be a starting point for you, not an ending point. And then regarding the unit summary table, the exemplars, there's a teacher version. We just gave you the student version to look at, but there'll always be a teacher version and a student version. And the parts in the unit summary table are really just reflecting the Uncover. The part B is the Uncover activity. What did you do, learn in your lab? And then part C is the stuff that should be discussed in that share conversation. And it's really just a way to kind of recap or, capture in writing those science principles that we've agreed upon. So I don't think you really want to skip the Uncover activity, and you don't really want to skip writing down the science principles that hopefully you talked about in the share. So, maybe if you've never used a unit summary table before, that looks like a lot. But the purpose of the unit summary table is to give kids a place to write stuff down after they've discovered it, and make sure, everybody's on the same page. These are the science principles that we agree on. And that unit summary table then can function kind of as classroom notes, except we're not giving it to them before the lab, we're giving it to them after. They can function as a study guide. Especially if you have kids with an IEP or kids who are nervous about tests and stuff like that, and they're like, we need a study guide. Well, there's your unit summary table. That's a summary of what we did and what we learned. So we highly recommend you do unit summary tables in some way. Sometimes people will do a classroom copy and they hang it on the wall or something like that, and they don't have kids do it individually. But we recommend that at some point, you have a kind of a structure to write stuff down. What have we learned as a class? All right. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of a taste. And as you use those this year, if you start using them in the next 4 or 5 months or whatever, and you have thoughts or suggestions or whatever, continue to contact us and let us know, because we do really listen to what people say. So and we'll try to, you know, polish them up to make them useful. One of the things, some of the feedback that we got back is that people have trouble finding all of the resources, and I understand that. Our website is, you know, relatively simply designed, and so all of the resources that you need in a lesson are embedded in the lesson plan. They're in that unit or in that phase summary box for each of the 5 phases. They're embedded in the student steps, but that can be kind of tedious if you just want to look at the unit summary table, or you just want to look at the differentiated reading guides or things like that. So this actually, we could have updated this slide, because what you'll see now on those new unit pages, Lindsay went through and did this, is you'll see the unit summary table. You'll see the teacher guide when you click on it, but the student guide is linked on that document. There's a link for the unit challenge organizer and everything related to unit challenges. The career lesson plans are there. The slide guides are there for the units that have them, and hope that'll be all of them soon. The printing index is there. And then let me just show you super quick what it might look like with the literacy resources and the assessment tools. So Lindsay has gone through and added, she collected all of the differentiated readings in each unit and put them on one page, so that if you need that independent student work, or you need a subplan or whatever, you don't have to search through the lessons. They're all collected there. And the same thing with the assessment tools, the pre-post tests and the embedded assessments, and the analysis questions and the reteach activities are on this document here. They're still embedded in the lesson plan itself, but they're also up front on the homepage for the unit. All right, so the other thing that we put together that we got a lot of feedback on was people wanted to be able to find those subplans. So we put together just a resource document just for the subplans, and it's under the resources drop down on the black bar on your dashboard homepage. And so on that document, you'll find we have generic emergency subplans that you can put in your subplan folder, or, you know, if you're the department chair and somebody calls in sick at the last minute, you can grab one of those. Barb did one last year on bees, and we put one together this year on dogs, their readings from the Science Explorers, which we use often, and we figure those are kind of high interest and would keep kids busy for an hour. And then we are going to work on a generic subplan for each unit. That's another thing that's on our list of things to do. Right now, we only have one for 8-6, but that's coming. And then in that subplan, we also mention, you know, that you can use the differentiated reading guides. You might consider the career connections. There's a few other suggestions from things outside of MyStar that would be emergency subplans, you know, kind of science related and would keep kids busy. So right under that resources tab, you're going to look for that subplan resource doc and find what you need there. And then thinking about starting school, I know some of you started this week, or maybe you're starting next week, but just a reminder that we have off-the-shelf lessons. Those first few days, a lot of times are kind of crazy, and kids' schedules are constantly changing and people are getting reassigned and whatnot. And so if you're looking for something, you know, useful to do, but just kind of, you know, ease into it, draw a scientist, lab safety, measuring length, those are great things to do. If you know that your kids haven't had much background with NGSS, especially if you're a 6th grade teacher, you might consider the modeling lessons, especially lesson A. That's actually the elementary level of modeling. But if your kids didn't get it in elementary, start with lesson A. Lesson B is system modeling, and that's more of the middle school goal. So, you know, 7th and 8th grade teachers might start there. And then claim evidence reasoning is always something that is a challenge for kids. So that might be something you want to start with too. So just remember that those are there. And then we have a little plug if you're interested in workbooks or kits. they're available from Kendall Hunt, and you get them by emailing Sarah at Kendall Hunt, and she can help you out. All right, I'm going to stop talking now for a little bit, and I'm going to turn this over to Barb, and she's going to tell you about some assessment updates.
Unmute, that'll help. Just a quick reminder that we consider assessments at MyStart to be tools for your use. Modify them in the ways that work best for you in your classroom. But we would ask that you not modify the sense-making process out of them. We also consider assessments to be an integral part of the learning. And as students work through the assessments, they're carefully scaffolded so that students work through to make either solve a problem or make sense of a phenomenon that is related to and using what they learned in the unit, but somewhat different. So there's a little bit of a transfer distance in the assessments from what they actually learned in the unit. They use what they've learned in a new way, hopefully to make their thinking visible, and so that you get some authentic assessment opportunities. It's not a memorize and regurgitate. So a few things we've been adding to try and improve our assessments. In enhanced units, you're going to find analysis questions, and those are in the share section of an EA lesson. We generally write them along with the EA. So we write the EA first, and then we think of another phenomenon that's similar to what the EA was, similar to the unit, but different, still authentic and new, still with a little bit of a transfer distance that the students have to apply what they've learned in a new way. So it's another context for the kids, but we generally have them work through the same sense-making process using a different context. We tend to ask the same types of questions. Occasionally, we'll give a little more scaffolding. So in analysis questions, in this case, we're looking at taco bars, and maybe we looked at something slightly different in the EA. We might give something like sentence starters in the analysis questions, but not necessarily in the EA. So they're slightly different in most units, but they're generally written in combination with the EA. So you're going to see similarities between them. Another thing that we're adding on slide 16 are reteach resources. So, these can be used again. They're tools for you to use however it works best in your classroom. But we often will find the reteach resources. We take a look at the EA, we take a look at the analysis questions. We try to find areas where students might have gotten tripped up. So sometimes it's content, sometimes it's practices, things that we think might be challenging for students in either the EA or the analysis questions. And we try to have some sort of a reteach opportunity for kids. Lots of times these are designed to be completed independently or with assistance from a parent or a paraprofessional, maybe somebody who maybe doesn't have the science background that you have. And then there's other resources sometimes too. So sometimes they're going to be readings, sometimes they're going to be videos, sometimes they're going to be websites or simulations. So we use quite a lot of different types of materials or, modalities for the reteach resources. And those are also found in the share section of the lesson. So we want to take a look at how these are all related and have you have a chance to get into them and think about how these might be useful in your classroom. And so what we're going to ask you to do is to take a look at 463, the highlighted part. So there's the analysis questions that are the teacher analysis questions. Those are going to have all of your exemplar answers in them. We've also got a slide guide, and you're going to find this again in the share section, so that if you want to go over the analysis questions in class or you want to preview them with your students, you want to show them the figures. Generally in assessment slides, we give you figures, we give you tables, we give you graphs, so that if you want to talk through those with your students before you actually have them work on the assessment or after, you can do that. And then you can take a look at the reteach, what students would do with that. And then take a look at the embedded assessment. And actually, you may want to start with the embedded assessment and then take a look at how the analysis questions and the reteach might be useful in getting your kids ready either before or using them after the embedded assessment. So we've got the student version and the teacher version and the slides and the scoring guide. I would say the teacher version and the slides are what you're going to want to look at. So take a quick look at analysis questions, at the reteach, at the EA, and then here's what we'd like you to do. In your breakout room, in your team, take a look at the characteristics, maybe look for similarities and differences. But the most important column that we'd like you to complete is the uses. How might you use these analysis questions, these reteach activities, and these embedded assessments in your classroom? So if you only have enough time, I would say maybe start with the uses, and then you can always go back and fill in characteristics later. And primarily in the characteristics, you're going to be looking for those similarities and differences. Any questions before we put you into breakout rooms and give you a little bit of time to take a look at these resources? You may also want to think about how you might modify them. You know, how could these be useful? Maybe they're useful as is, but maybe there are some things you would change. Remember, the assessments are all tools for your use. Okay, any questions? All right, let's go ahead and get into breakout rooms. Okay, so I'm still on slide 22 because I just wanted to remind you, now that you've had a chance to look at these, if you're thinking, oh, you know what, this could be really useful. I can see some ways that I could use these in my classroom, or I want to share these with some of the people that I work with. Where can you find them? So you'll find them in the share, where all the teacher resources and student resources are in the share introductory box, but you can also find them in the select assessment tool links. So if you go to that homepage, that select assessment tools, where if you click on that 6.3 select assessment tools, you'll also find the analysis questions, slide guides, all of the assessments, and the reteach resources, just so that you kind of know where to get these things. So let's take a look at slide 23 and some great ideas here for uses, exit tickets review. One of the things that some teachers have mentioned too, if you're in a district that requires you to retest students if they don't reach a certain achievement or proficiency level, some people like to hold these analysis questions back and use it as a retest and use the reteach activities to prepare students. So if they aren't as successful as you'd like on the embedded assessment, you can use the reteach, and then those analysis questions could be your retest if you want to. So I was wondering if someone from Team 1 could share how they might use AI programs for practice and review using those analysis questions. That's kind of a new idea that I've not seen before. I'd love to hear more about how you do that, how you might do that. Is there anybody from Team 1 that could share with us?
I'm sorry, I had to run to the bathroom. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I was hoping someone could share your thoughts about using the AI program for fun practice and review, what you might do with that, because I think that's a really intriguing idea that I haven't heard before.
Oh, that was one of the other members. But what she said is there's this program that's like Kahoot. And you can take the slideshow, because the way the slideshow is made, and you can download it into that program, and it creates a really fun activity, that you can share with the classroom to do in practice. So yeah, I want to know more about that too.
Okay, yeah, that sounds interesting. One of the things you do want to keep in mind is to try to maintain that scaffolded structure so that students are working through that sense-making process, but it would be cool to take some of the figures and maybe do a little more analysis with those. So that could be really neat. So we've got some great ideas And the embedded assessment on team 2, similar to the MSTEP, also our embedded assessments can be similar to some of the high stakes tests that students will see, ACT, SAT kinds of things. A lot of people choose to take a grade on those embedded assessments too. So we're seeing some great ideas, check understanding, using the reteach as a video teacher intervention for, okay, lots of great ideas here. So just, we really wanted to get you into those pieces because we know that share phase can get, there's a lot of resources there, and wanted to make sure that you were able to see those. So one of the things that we did not have you look at the teacher scoring guide with the embedded assessment, but one of the things that you will find in the scoring guide is some scoring recommendations. And again, those are just recommendations. And so if we go back, Lindsay, to, slide 26, please. There we go. Slide 26. So one of the things we wanted to talk about a little bit is when we look at standards-based grading, we're really looking at leveling students in terms of their proficiency. So we think of level 1 as the most basic proficiency with help. So maybe just getting a couple of those early scaffolding kind of knowledge, recall more of the DCI knowledge, questions correct with help. Level 2 is some basic proficiency. Maybe they're getting some of those early scaffolding questions correct, but they're not doing a very good job of solving the problem or making sense of the phenomenon. They're not integrating the DCI, the SEP, and the CCC together. Level 3, we want to remind you, is what we consider proficient. So that's where the majority of your class should be. And that's where they have all 3 dimensions. There's some integration, there's some sense making or solving, but there may be still some minor errors or a lack of sophistication. That's where we want most of your students to be. Level 4 is considered mastery, and that would be a full integration of all the dimensions to make sense of the phenomenon or solve the problems. They're pretty much getting most of the whole bundle correct, and that final question where they make sense of it and explain it or solve the problem, they're really doing that well with some sophistication. So when you think about grading student work, you're going to think about like read over the student's work, that bundle. Okay, what level do I think the student is in terms of proficient? 2.5, 3, 3.7, what do I think? And then consider converting that into a grade using whatever grading scheme you want. We have a couple here just as examples, but if you notice in both of them, a 3 would be an A. So when I first started standards-based grading, like a 2 was a C, a 3 was a B, a 4 was an A. But if we think of level 3 as proficient, really that should be closer to the A range in most cases. But again, this is a decision that you'll make in your classroom or your district may help you make in terms of how you want to convert those levels into grades. But I kind of wanted to set that up for you. So in our EAs, embedded assessments, we give you recommendations. So as we write the assessment, we're thinking about, okay, what would show evidence of, we think, level 2 proficiency? In this case, it would be questions 1, 2, and 3 completed correctly. In order to get to level 3, students would also need question 4, 5, and 6 completed correctly. Level 4 would really be getting those last 2 more difficult questions, more demanding, 7 and 8, and making sense of or solving. So we give you recommendations that we think absolutely change those based on your needs, based on your experience with your students. They are just recommendations. So the new thing you're going to find is in enhanced units, teachers have asked, well, what about the pre-post? You know, you give us some grading recommendations in the EAs, but what about the pre-post? So we've been working on adding grading guidance to the pre-post tests. And this is our latest iteration of this little table. So if you have comments or ideas or, you know, some feedback for us, either put it in the chat or send it to to Chris or to me, and I'd be glad to bring that up. So right now what we're doing is, let's say this pre-post 6.3 has 3 main questions. And question 1 has A, B, C, D are the parts. So in order to get level 2, they would have to get A and B correct. In order to get level 3, they would get A, B, and C. In order to get level 4, they would get A, B, C, and D. So you could do this a couple different ways. You could average all of those together if you wanted to get a final single pre-post score and then grade. Or I think what I would do is give 3 separate assessment grades. I would have more in my grade book, which is always good for us, and in my district it would be. So I would give them a score for question 1 and then a grade for question 1. And it would be pre-post 1, pre-post 2, pre-post 3 in my grade book, and then I would score them for each one. But you can do it however it works for you. But if you have any feedback about the layout of this, you're going to find this grading guidance at the beginning of the teacher version of the pre-post, along with the assessment overview table. We're moving all of that to the beginning. In the past, it's been at the end, and we think giving that right at the beginning of the pre-post in the teacher version might be helpful. So
the goal is to have that probably by about the end of October. So maybe about the time you're ready to give your first pre-post test, you should be able to find that for whichever unit you're teaching.
Yes, we're in the process of updating the form. We've gone through several iterations of the format of these little tables, so they just all need to be updated. All right. We have some assessment series coming up. I'm going to let Chris, if you want to take over and talk more about that, that would be great.
So there seems to be some significant interest around the state in implementing standards-based grading. And we always have people asking how to make modifications and accommodations. And then Barb has a great presentation on how to help your kids do some direct instruction with your kids on how to break down the structure of those cluster scenarios and kind of help them see, you know, this is the pattern. You can always use the questions at the beginning to help you answer the questions at the end, those kinds of things. So we are going to do an assessment series. Sketches are available. The one on October 17th is on the dashboard already, and the other 2 will show up, you know, fairly soon. So if you have interest in doing standards-based grading, we have some great MyStar teachers with a lot of experience who are going to share what they do. And now that Barb has all of those grading guidance tables in the pre-post and stuff like that, it seems like something that might be actually doable. So
the other thing,
for
Chris,
one or all of those.
Chris, the other thing I might mention with the 17th is we're also going to be showing you how you can have your students self-assess and keep track of their own growth. So it's not just going to be grading, it's going to be about growth tracking, both you growth tracking for your students, particularly in practices, but also students doing their own self-evaluation and growth tracking. So just wanted to get that in there too.
Yeah, thanks. And then in September, our next learning series, we've got one of our MyStar researchers has been crunching some data, comparing MyStar schools to non-MyStar schools in Michigan and the MSTEP scores. And he's got some really interesting stuff to tell us. So if that's something you or someone in your district is interested in, you know, sign up for the next learning series. And again, that's on the dashboard. So professional learning updates, I'm going to zip through this so we have a few minutes to do those breakout rooms. Last chance for phase 1 teacher training this fall. If you have new people in your district and they haven't been trained yet, that's on the dashboard. We have some phase 2 opportunities coming up to build your toolkit for bubble maps and system models. We have the assessment series in October that we just talked about. And then our next 2 learning series are already posted. So we have the MSTEP score research in September. And then we have some amazing MyStar teachers coming to us in October to show us how they do accommodations for English learners. So keep those in mind and sign up on the dashboard. And we do have a pretty active Facebook community. So if you want to get involved with that and get the updates and tips and tricks and things like that, please join our Facebook group. We do not approve membership in that group unless you have a MyStar subscription, so you can feel comfortable that it's just teachers and just MyStar teachers. All right, we have about 15 minutes left, so I'm gonna set, or maybe Lindsay's setting them up. We're gonna set up 3 breakout rooms, and this time you can choose where you'd like to go, and you can pop in and out. So if you have more questions for Barb about the assessments things that we did today, or about assessment in general, please feel free to pop into room 1. If you have questions about the curriculum, the unit summary tables, or the slide guides, or the enhanced units, or anything like that, join Steph in room 2. And then I'm going to hang out in room 3 if you have any questions about the professional learning things that are coming up, or how do you get your sketches, or anything else you'd like to talk to me about that has to do with the professional learning. So we're going to open those up, and you go ahead and choose where you want to go, and we'll pull everybody back in about 10 or 15 minutes. All right, everybody, thanks. It is 4:59, so we want to make sure that we get you out of here on time. Looks like there was some great conversation going on with Barb and Steph. And I had a good conversation with one of you a little bit about some sketches and things like that. So appreciate your time. Hope we see you again soon. I will tomorrow morning send out the sketch information. You can start a new sketch sheet, and all the things that you do between now and May, you can put on there. And then in May, you can send it in with your $10 if you want to claim sketches on MyStar stuff this year. So that's all we have for you. We'll all hang out. If there's something more that you want to talk about, or questions that you have after 5 o'clock, and you want to hang out and just, grab us while we're here. Otherwise, feel free to log off. We appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. And hopefully we'll see you all again soon.